The docking bay of Corona IV buzzed with activity as alien delegates arrived for the Intergalactic Biological Symposium, each eager to flaunt the most extraordinary life forms from their homeworlds. High Chancellor Morvix of the Corvani delegation observed the arrivals with a critical eye, his scales glinting under the harsh bay lights. Vexel Morvix murmured to his aide, "Any word on the Terrans?" "They're here," Vexel said, squinting at a ship descending onto the platform. "Though I doubt they'll contribute anything meaningful. Their world is chaos and they are even worse." The Wayfinder, a human exploration vessel, landed with its signature Terran flamboyance sleek, loud, and accompanied by an unnecessary amount of light displays. A ramp lowered, revealing a single human Callen Drake. He strode confidently onto the platform, his battered jacket and cocky smirk a stark contrast to the pristine formality of the alien dignitaries. Behind him, a containment platform emerged, carrying a cage covered in shimmering black mesh. Even through the covering, something massive shifted inside. The air vibrated with a low, guttural rumble that made every alien freeze. Morvix's expression darkened. What have they brought? Drake stopped at the center of the assembly, his relaxed posture an anomaly amidst the tense crowd. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of varied biology," he announced, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "Earth didn't bring a predator this year. We brought something a little more exotic." With a practiced flourish, Drake removed the covering. The cage revealed a creature unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It was over 9 feet tall, its segmented body wrapped in chitinous armor that shimmered like molten gold. Its 6 legs ended in razor-sharp talons, and its elongated head bore a cluster of black, soulless eyes. From its back, blade-like spines quivered with every movement. It was a creature of primal terror. "This," Drake said, gesturing toward the beast, "is a fangral. Native to the volcanic world of Dragoran, apex predator, completely untamable." The fangral opened its mandibles, releasing a roar so deep and resonant that the vibrations rattled the glass panels of the docking bay. Several delegates backed away in visible terror. Morvix gripped his staff tightly. "You brought a fangral? Are you insane? Those things have wiped out entire research stations." Drake smiled, leaning casually against the reinforced bars of the cage. "You're not wrong, Chancellor. Fangrals are top-tier predators. They're fast, smart, and territorial. But I figured, hey, if humanity can live alongside our own dangerous creatures, why not make friends with someone else's?" The crowd erupted into incredulous murmurs. "Make friends," Vexel hissed, his scales flaring in agitation. "Humans have no sense of self-preservation." Morvix glared at Drake. "You expect us to believe you brought this creature without safeguards? Its very existence is a threat to every being here." Drake straightened, his expression becoming more serious. "The cage is reinforced with tremolite alloy and magnetic dampeners. It's safe. Relax." As if on cue, the fangral slammed its body against the bars, bending them slightly. A low, chittering growl echoed through the hall, sending several delegates scrambling for cover. Drake sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Okay, mostly safe." Later, in the grand hall of the symposium, alien delegates showcased their unique specimens, luminescent reef worms from the oceans of Clerix, 6-winged avians from the gas planet Orith, and microscopic colonies capable of constructing crystal palaces. Yet, despite the galaxy's wonders, the fangral remained the main attraction. Drake stood near the cage, answering questions as cautiously curious beings gathered around. "How do you contain its aggression?" asked a Chironite biologist, her mandibles clicking in rhythm. "I don't," Drake replied, his tone nonchalant. "You don't contain something like this. You show respect. Trust works both ways." Before anyone could probe further, the lights flickered. A power fluctuation rippled through the containment field surrounding the cage. What's happening?" Vexel hissed. The answer came quickly. The tremolite bars groaned as the fangral forced them apart with unnatural strength. With a final ear-splitting screech, it burst free, landing in the center of the hall with a resounding thud. Panic erupted. Delegates fled in every direction as the fangral rose to its full height, its its spines flaring outward like blades. It let out a roar that echoed off the high ceilings, its talons gouging deep furrows into the polished floor. Morvix grabbed Vexel, his voice trembling. "We're all going to die." The fangral turned its head, its multiple eyes locking onto the nearest group of cowering delegates. It lowered itself, preparing to lunge. "Hey!" Drake's voice cut through the chaos. He stood alone, his hands raised in a calming gesture. The fangral froze, its spines twitching as it focused on the human. "You're scared," Drake said softly, his tone devoid of his usual humor. "New place, lots of weird smells. I get it." The crowd watched in stunned silence as Drake approached the predator slowly, his movements deliberate. "Humans are insane," Vexel whispered. The fangral let out a low growl, its spines rattling ominously. Drake stopped a few feet away, crouching to make himself smaller. "I know you're nervous, but look, no one here wants to hurt you." The fangral tilted its head, chittering softly. Drake reached into his jacket and pulled out a strip of dried meat. "See this? Food. You've got to be hungry after that trip." He tossed the meat a few feet in front of the fangral. The predator hesitated, its eyes flicking between Drake and the offering. Slowly it stepped forward, its talons clicking against the floor. It sniffed the meat, then devoured it in one swift motion. "There we go," Drake murmured, his voice calm and steady. He extended his hand, palm open. "See? No tricks." The fangral's head lowered, its breath hot against Drake's arm. The hall held its collective breath. Then, impossibly, the predator nudged Drake's hand with its mandibles. Drake smiled, running his hand along the creature's armored head. "You're not so bad, are you?" The room erupted in gasps as the galaxy's deadliest apex predator leaned into the human's touch, its spines lowering in what could only be described as submission. Morvix stared, slack-jawed. Impossible. Drake chuckled, scratching the fangral behind one of its spines. "Nah, just misunderstood." The symphony of shocked whispers and disbelief filled the grand hall as Callen Drake stood calmly beside the fangral. Delegates who had moments ago cowered behind displays now crept closer, their fear tempered by the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing. Morvix couldn't tear his gaze away. He tamed it. How is this even possible? "He hasn't tamed it," Vexel hissed. "The creature is toying with him. The moment he lets his guard down." The fangral rumbled softly, lowering itself onto its 6 legs like a resting beast. Its spines flattened, its imposing posture softened, and for a fleeting moment it resembled an oversized pet, an illusion only Drake seemed to take seriously. One of the braver delegates, an Arthean with a translucent body of flowing gelatin, approached cautiously, their voice trembling. "Human. What did you do? Is it a chemical trick?" "Pheromones." Drake crouched beside the creature, scratching just behind one of its mandibles. The fangral made a chittering sound, a mix between a growl and a purr. "No tricks," Drake replied. "Trust. This guy isn't that different from the predators we have back home, big, territorial, and smarter than you think." "Smarter," Morvix interjected. "It's a mindless killer. Fangrals are known to set traps for prey and even for hunting parties. They cannot form bonds." Drake shrugged, his casual demeanor utterly maddening to the onlookers. "Maybe you just never gave one a reason to trust you." Vexel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "That's absurd. Fangrals are apex predators. They don't trust. They dominate." Drake stood, patting the fangral's armored head. "Oh, they dominate all right. But domination doesn't mean they can't recognize when someone isn't a threat or when someone is offering a little kindness." The crowd murmured uneasily. Kindness was not a concept easily associated with fangrals. Before the conversation could continue, a Zernian delegate floated forward. The Zernian was an ethereal plasma being, its core pulsating with energy. Its voice vibrated across the room like a low symphony. "Human, you have violated multiple safety protocols by bringing such a creature here. The fangrel's escape proves your methods are reckless and dangerous. It must be neutralized immediately. The fangrel's spines flared at the Xernian's words, its mandibles clicking in irritation. Drake stepped protectively in front of the creature, his voice calm but firm. It escaped because of a power failure. That's on your symposium's infrastructure, not me. And neutralizing it. That's not going to happen. The Xernian's glow intensified, its plasma form crackling with disapproval. You cannot possibly believe you can control it. I don't control it, Drake said. I work with it. The room erupted into tense debate. Some delegates called for immediate action, demanding the fangrel be subdued before it reverted to its violent nature. Others argued that Drake's achievement, however unlikely, warranted further study. Morvix turned to Drake, his tone exasperated. You have to see reason. It may be calm now, but what happens when its instincts take over? Will it hunt? Attack? Drake smirked. It's not instincts you should be worried about, it's fear. If you keep treating it like a monster, it's going to act like one. The room fell into uneasy silence. Finally, Zolmax, the chairperson of the Apex Predator Council, raised a clawed hand for order. The towering insectoid leaned forward, its compound eyes reflecting the light like twin black mirrors. Human, you claim that this predator can be understood and trusted. Very well. We shall see if your methods hold merit. The fangrel will be tested in a controlled environment. Tested how? Drake asked, his voice laced with suspicion. A neutral habitat, Zolmax explained. The creature will be removed from your influence. If it behaves as you claim, if it demonstrates restraint and understanding, we will reconsider our assumptions. However, if it reverts to its natural instincts. Zolmax's mandibles clicked ominously. We will act accordingly. Drake hesitated, glancing down at the fangrel, which now rested quietly at his feet. Its spines were lowered, its breathing steady. He crouched and met its dark, multifaceted eyes. What do you think, big guy? Feel like proving them wrong? The fangrel clicked its mandibles softly, almost as if in response. Drake stood, squaring his shoulders. Fine, let's do it. The crowd gasped. Vexel clutched Morvix's arm, his voice panicked. He's mad. Completely mad. Zolmax signaled, and a section of the hall's floor began to shimmer. A containment dome descended from the ceiling, sealing Drake and the fangrel inside. The shimmering floor transformed, morphing into a lush, simulated jungle complete with dense foliage, rushing water, and alien wildlife. The fangrel lifted its head, its spines twitching as it sniffed the air. Drake glanced around, then leaned casually against a nearby tree. All right, big guy, show them what you've got. For a moment, the fangrel prowled the simulated environment, its movements slow and deliberate. Delegates watched nervously, expecting the creature to revert to its predatory instincts. Then, without warning, it pounced. The crowd gasped as the fangrel disappeared into the underbrush, its golden armor blending seamlessly with the foliage. A moment later, a guttural roar echoed through the dome, followed by a sudden stillness. Zolmax leaned forward, his voice tense. It's hunting. Drake smirked. Wait for it. The bushes rustled. Slowly, the fangrel emerged, dragging its prey in its mandibles, a simulated vine, torn clean from a nearby tree. It dropped the vine at Drake's feet and tilted its head expectantly. The room was silent. Good boy, Drake said, picking up the vine and tossing it further into the jungle. Fetch. To the crowd's astonishment, the fangrel darted after it, its spines rattling with enthusiasm. The delegates broke into hushed murmurs. Zolmax's compound eyes flicked toward Drake. What is the meaning of this? Simple, Drake replied, watching the fangrel return with the vine. Treat a creature with trust, and it just might surprise you. The containment dome shimmered as the fangrel returned with the vine, holding it gently in its mandibles. It placed the vine at Drake's feet, then tilted its massive head as if waiting for praise. Drake crouched, scratching just behind the creature's spines. Attaboy, he said warmly. The alien delegates stared in stunned silence. Some muttered amongst themselves, while others simply gawked, their assumptions about apex predators unraveling with every moment. "This is impossible," Morvik said, breaking the silence. "Fangrels are apex predators. They hunt, they dominate, they kill. They don't fetch." "Maybe you've been thinking about them all wrong," Drake replied. "Just because something's dangerous doesn't mean it can't also be cooperative, or even friendly." Vexel shook his head in disbelief. "You're treating it like a companion animal. What if it decides you're no longer useful?" Drake gave the fangrel an affectionate pat on its armored head. "Then I guess I've got to stay useful." The delegates erupted into whispers again, many of them questioning not just the fangrel's behavior but the human's audacity. Zolmax raised a claw to silence the crowd. The chairperson's compound eyes focused intently on Drake. "Human, this demonstration is intriguing, but it does not prove your claims. A simple retrieval exercise does not demonstrate trust, it demonstrates conditioning." Drake stood, folding his arms. "All right, then. What do you suggest?" Zolmax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The fangrel must face an uncontrolled situation, a natural challenge where instincts will determine its behavior. If it demonstrates restraint in such circumstances, we will acknowledge your claims of trust. If not. The chairperson trailed off, and the delegates shifted uncomfortably. "Fair enough," Drake said. He turned to the fangrel, giving it a reassuring scratch behind its spines. "You hear that, big guy? Time to really show them what you're made of." The containment dome shimmered again, and the simulated jungle shifted. The foliage thinned, giving way to an open savanna-like environment dotted with rocky outcroppings. Across the simulated field, another creature appeared. This new predator was equally imposing. Standing taller than the fangrel, its reptilian frame was sleek and muscular, covered in shimmering emerald scales. Its elongated snout bristled with dagger-like teeth, and its clawed feet dug into the dirt with every step. A pair of glowing yellow eyes locked onto the fangrel. Vexel gasped. "That's a Dracoth. They're notorious for fighting to the death." The Dracoth let out a low, rumbling growl that built into a deafening roar. Its tail lashed against the ground, sending plumes of dust into the air as it began to circle the fangrel. The fangrel's spines flared, its body lowering into a defensive stance. The air in the dome grew tense as the two apex predators faced each other. Drake didn't move. "Easy," he murmured, his voice low and steady. The fangrel turned its head slightly, clicking its mandibles in response to the human's voice. "What is he doing?" Morvik hissed. "It's a Dracoth. The fangrel will be forced to fight." The Dracoth charged, its claws tearing into the ground as it lunged toward the fangrel. The golden armored predator reacted instantly, darting to the side with a burst of speed that seemed impossible for its size. The room erupted in gasps as the fangrel spun around, its mandibles clicking furiously. The Dracoth roared again, circling its opponent with predatory precision. Drake's voice cut through the tension. "You don't need to fight. Show them what you're capable of." The fangrel hesitated, its spines twitching. The Dracoth lunged again, its claws raking through the air just inches from the fangrel's body. Instead of retaliating, the fangrel reared back, letting out a high-pitched series of clicks. The sound was strange, almost melodic, and it froze the Dracoth in its tracks. The Dracoth tilted its head, its aggressive posture faltering. The fangrel continued clicking, lowering its spines and stepping back. "What's happening?" Vexel asked, his voice filled with confusion. Drake smiled. "It's communicating." The Dracoth huffed, shaking its head as if confused. It took a hesitant step forward, then paused. The fangrel clicked again, its tone softer, almost inviting. The Dracoth lowered its head, its claws retracting slightly. The two creatures stood motionless for a long moment, their postures neutral, their aggression dissipated. Morvik stared, his eyes wide. It didn't attack. It de-escalated. "That's right," Drake said, stepping forward. "Violence isn't always the answer. even for a fangral. The containment dome shimmered again, returning to its neutral state. The Dracoth vanished, replaced by the polished floor of the symposium hall. The fangral turned to Drake, clicking softly as it approached him. Drake crouched, giving the creature a warm smile. "You did good, buddy." The fangral leaned its massive head into Drake's hand, its spines lowering completely. The hall was silent. Even Zolmax seemed at a loss for words. Finally, the chairperson spoke. "This behavior is unprecedented. It appears your claims of trust are not without merit, human." Drake stood, his hand still resting on the fangral's head. "Like I said, treat it like a monster, and it'll act like one. Treat it like a partner, and it just might surprise you." Morvix muttered under his breath, "I still think you're insane." Drake grinned. "You're not wrong." The grand hall of the symposium remained steeped in silence, the echoes of the fangral's unprecedented de-escalation still fresh in everyone's minds. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their assumptions about apex predators and the humans who dared approach them shattered. Zolmax raised its towering frame, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as it addressed the crowd. "What we have witnessed today defies not only our understanding of fangrals but the nature of all apex predators. Such behavior demands further study, however." It turned its compound eyes toward Drake. "It also demands scrutiny. The question remains, does the human truly understand the risks he has imposed upon us all?" The murmurs swelled again, a growing mix of awe and skepticism. Morvix, still clutching his staff, finally broke his silence. "You claim that this creature trusts you, but what guarantees do we have that it won't revert to its nature?" Drake sighed, glancing down at the fangral, which stood calmly at his side. "It's not about guarantees, Chancellor. It's about respect. Predators don't just attack for fun, they're not reckless. They're survivors, just like us." Survivor Zolmax's voice carried a subtle note of incredulity. Drake stepped forward, addressing the room. "You all think fangrals, Dracoths, and the like are pure killers, driven by instinct. But maybe that's because all you've ever done is provoke them. On Earth, we learned the hard way that the most dangerous creatures only stay dangerous if you make them feel cornered." The fangral clicked its mandibles softly, leaning into Drake's touch as he scratched one of its spines. "This isn't domination. It's understanding," Drake continued. "I gave this big guy a choice: fight, flee, or trust. And guess what? Trust worked." The room fell silent once more. Some delegates looked convinced, others remained skeptical. The tension was broken by the sound of clicking talons. From the far end of the chamber, a team of heavily armed security drones emerged, their plasma cannons aimed squarely at the fangral. Zolmax raised a clawed hand. "This demonstration is over. For the safety of all present, the fangral must be returned to containment immediately." The fangral bristled, its spines flaring as it emitted a low, warning growl. Drake stepped between the drones and the creature, raising his hands. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not how we do this." "This is not your decision," human Zolmax said, its tone final. The drones advanced, their cannons humming as they charged. The fangral's spines rattled, and it crouched low, preparing to defend itself. "Stop," Drake shouted. The drones paused, their movements hesitant. All eyes turned to the human, who stood with an air of defiance that seemed absurd in the face of such overwhelming firepower. Drake turned to Zolmax. "You said this was about understanding, right? About proving whether trust can overcome instinct." Zolmax's compound eyes narrowed, and "Then back off. If you corner it now, you'll undo everything we just proved. Let it leave on its own terms." The delegates erupted into frantic whispers. The idea of letting the galaxy's most dangerous predator roam free was unthinkable. "You ask too much," Zolmax said. Drake crossed his arms. "No, you're just too scared to see the truth. The fangral isn't the problem, you are. All of you. You keep treating predators like threats instead of allies. Maybe it's time to try something different." The room grew still. Slowly, Zolmax raised a claw, signaling the drones to stand down. Very well. The fangral will decide its own path. But know this, human, if you are wrong, the consequences will be yours to bear. Drake nodded. Fair enough. He turned back to the fangral, crouching to meet its many black eyes. All right, buddy, time to go. The fangral clicked its mandibles softly, then turned and padded toward the exit of the containment dome. The crowd parted like waves, watching in stunned silence as the predator moved through the hall with quiet dignity. At the threshold, it paused, glancing back at Drake for a moment before disappearing into the shadows beyond. The room remained frozen, as if the delegates couldn't process what they had just seen. Morvix finally spoke, his voice trembling. I still don't understand how you did it. Drake grinned. That's okay. Neither do I, really. You're reckless, Vexel said, his tone sharp. Maybe, Drake admitted. But someone's got to show the galaxy that not every problem has to end in a fight. Zolmax rose to its full height, addressing the room once more. The symposium will reconvene tomorrow. Today's events have raised questions we cannot yet answer, but one thing is clear: the human approach to apex predators merits further study. As the delegates began to disperse, Morvix approached Drake with uncharacteristic solemnity. You're a strange species, Callen Drake. Reckless, unpredictable, but remarkable. Drake chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. The Corvani High Chancellor shook his head. I wouldn't. You humans are terrifying. Drake smiled, the glint of mischief returning to his eyes. You're welcome. As he walked back to the Wayfinder, the room buzzed with speculation, debate, and disbelief. For the first time in the history of the Intergalactic Biological Symposium, the galaxy was forced to reconsider its understanding of predators and the humans who somehow tamed them. From the shadows of the Wayfinder's hangar, a pair of glowing black eyes watched Drake disappear into his ship.